course it's not going to put a roof over their head and fundamentally give them, like, meet all the needs that they have right now. But what an awful way to look at the world. If I can't, fill someone's bank account with like enough money to see them through the rest of their life, or perfectly carve out whatever their version of happiness is, and but I can give what I do have. That I think is something many of us, and myself included for a long time, overlook.
For our Be the Change segment this month, we are featuring a grassroots movement called Do Something for Nothing. This movement focuses on how we can all play a part to positively affect the lives of those around us. I've invited the founder of Do Something for Nothing, Joshua Coombes, on the show today. We're going to discuss why this organization began and what it really means to do something for nothing. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to learn more about what do something for nothing means. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to do something for nothing?
Yeah, cheers, Andy. Yeah, again, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you sort of wanting to reach out and have this conversation. Do something for nothing is really, it's nothing new. It's something we all do in our own lives, I believe, in our own way, when we connect with other people around us, perhaps without a transaction of money, but just when you give your time to someone in a way that feels, you're reaching out with the only expectation being maybe to make them perhaps feel better about themselves, or maybe you're helping them out with something that they need in their life. And we used to live in smaller communities where, of course, this was part of everyday life, where we had to share and had to have some kind of cooperative to be able to get along, to be able to live together in more egalitarian societies. Today, in the modern world, especially in bigger cities, in more metropolitan environments, these kinds of interactions can feel scarce and can sometimes, like for me, living in London, can sometimes feel like you can go a whole week without perhaps chatting to a stranger or having those kinds of conversations. Do Something for Nothing actually began and started about 6 years ago when I was walking around London, seeing lots of people living on the street, experiencing homelessness. I'm a hairdresser by trade. I was working in a salon at the time, and one day I went out and I offered somebody a haircut who was in the situation. It wasn't something I was really thinking through actually all that much, but I had my backpack on me with my things, and I was on the way to a friend's house, and I stopped and had a conversation. It turned into offering them a haircut, and that really started kind of the beginnings of what this is now, which was me documenting people's stories who are sometimes, oftentimes invisible, who value time and the things that we may overlook, like just being able to give your presence and give a conversation to someone. But it sparked into a movement of other people, doing different things in their own way.
Wow. Yeah. And what a good time for this in our world, where we've had so much lack of connection with our neighbor over the past couple of years with the pandemic. Do you think this not only felt good to you in your heart, but also felt timely?
Yeah, this is something that I think for as long as humans have been on this earth, I think that we respond to the same things, even though our lives may look like oftentimes like very different from the outside. You know what it feels like when someone goes out of their way for you to do the smallest of things, and I think that, yes, that can happen usually within our own family setting. Of course, that's very important within your immediate family to try and look after one another's well-being and check in on the people around you. But I do think there's something important that happens when you extend that to other people. And the pandemic, I think, has actually, for the first time in my lifetime anyway, it's kind of a collective isolation that we felt for the first time, of being starved of those very basic day-to-day things I used to take for granted, just being able to walk in somewhere without a mask on, and you smile and you say hello, and you can be this close to someone if you want to. And like the proximity itself is a thing, but I think more than anything it was the being locked down and that part of it. So of course this is an important thing always, but needless to say, the pandemic, I think we all know what those freedoms, when they are introduced into our lives, we all know how much we're taking them as this gift, and it would be really beautiful to hold on to that and put more emphasis on how important those kind of community actions that we've seen, the positive things from the pandemic, how we can maybe keep them as some pillars for the future moving forward.
That's beautiful, Joshua. Take me back to the moment when you gave this gentleman a haircut. What happened to you in your heart where you said, I can't just do this one time. I gotta keep doing that. What happened right that moment?
Honestly, it was I remember the bus ride home when I was on the way back to my house, and rather than going to do something for a bit of pocket money, which was why I had my clippers, my scissors and everything in my bag, because whether it be a friend for like a bit of a discount, or I'd see some clients outside of work that I'd do home visits. Instead, I spent a couple hours with someone, and there wasn't cash in my back pocket, but I was way richer in another way, in a whole different way. And it kind of made me focus. It was actually really all happened to me in half an hour on the bus, which was like this realization, I think, that like I'd never been really somebody who been obsessed with the material things or like having a big pile of cash. I mean, maybe it's perhaps that I'd never had the opportunity to accumulate all that much as far as disposable income, but I wasn't really attached to it in I think a way that felt unhealthy. But it's certainly no one really not there wasn't a point in my life where I think I'd learned that lesson before, though, that like actually there's a feeling you get when you go and give your time and you're of service to somebody who might need it. Fills up this cup that I think we all have, and it's okay to recognize that. I think for a long time I thought of charity, and specifically with homelessness, it's like the way it was portrayed to me, maybe the avenues to help, it wasn't anyone's fault. I'm not blaming anybody, but it was like donate button online, like call up this number, or you read an article about it and you see the statistics, and maybe you go and like look up your local organization, you go volunteer, which is great. But like I didn't feel like I had that much in the way of like touch point or like anything accessible to like feel like me as Josh could go and like help somebody. And I was ignoring this really tangible skill that I had in front of me that I knew in the salon made people feel good. Like I knew it was more than just like this money transaction. A lot of the time it was, of course, like I had to do a good job, but there'd be people who, they were getting a new job, or a relationship had just ended, or maybe they'd lost somebody in their life. And, like sometimes that played a transitional role for people coming in and like sitting down in the chair and like just having some me time, just having some time where you just relax and you think, well, I've got nowhere to go now. I've got this gown around me. Someone's making me a cup of coffee, and you sort of got to give your trust up to your hairdresser in that moment. Yeah, I think I was overlooking this thing of like, well, yeah, of course a haircut's not going to change someone's life. Of course it's not going to put a roof over their head and fundamentally give them, like, meet all the needs that they have right now. But what an awful way to look at the world. If I can't, fill someone's bank account with like enough money to see them through the rest of their life, or be able to perfectly carve out whatever their version of happiness is, and but I can give what I do have. That I think is something many of us, and myself included for a long time, overlook. It's like, of course, this thing and do something for nothing, it's just 4 words that's just a reminder of what so many people do in their own lives anyway. But we all have a different amount of time. Like I grew up with my mum. She was a single parent, only, like she had 3 kids. Like she couldn't do what I'm doing right now. Like I haven't got a family yet myself. I really very much hope to one day, like hopefully in the near future. But it's like, I get, if you're feeding a family and you've got people you care about and you've got stuff going on, like your life's going to look very different than someone else's. But it's more like a sort of mentality shift of like a couple of things for me, really, in a nutshell. And then I promise I'll finish this rant that I'm on. But the main thing when I go and give a talk, especially in a school, when I'm sort of talking to younger people, is like it's so easy to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. I mean, if it isn't the way the world is right now with what's going on in Eastern Europe and how tragic that is, if it wasn't the pandemic and the weight of that on this world, if it isn't climate change, if it isn't, in the UK, division through Brexit, in the US, that might look very different in certain ways politically, and the division that you see and how polarized that is. It's very easy to feel weighed down and have the shackles of life on you right now. And I'm like, you got to find your own way of getting rid of that, because the world looks different, man. It doesn't mean that you click your fingers and everything's okay, but it's like you got to find your way of becoming energized and empowered as one person to recognize you can make a difference. And maybe, even though it sounds counterproductive, like maybe you got to lower your benchmark first and realize that actually that might be in the small things that you can do, because we live in the little things. We all live in the little things. Yes, we live in goals and setting goals, and how important that is for like the next month, year, whatever your dreams are, whatever your ambitions are. Of course, that can remain intact, but we're here today, you know what I mean? And we live in these little moments we have with one another. And I think that when you put a bit more emphasis on that, it starts to become a bit more manageable, the things you can do. And then, secondly was just the shift in how we see one another. I think the biggest lesson I've learned through the work that I do is that, sometimes I'll see people who have very fierce substance misuse, difficult situations, where they're at right now with their mental health. There's all these things that can look kind of rather spiky and difficult from the outside, and they look like they bite, and it's like sometimes that's just these layers that we wear, and for somebody else that may look like driving a flash car and, every hair in place and looking like they've got the penthouse and everything's great from the outside. But the biggest thing I've learned is like, we've got to get better at seeing through like the image and the superficial here, because we all hurt the same way, we all feel the same things, we all have the same needs to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel a sense of belonging. And I'm trying my best, and I don't get it right all the time, just to remain aware that there's a human being behind all that stuff. And when you realize that, I think you recognize that your time and just listening and having a conversation, it means the same to everybody too.
I think that's beautiful. And I think as this division of wealth continues to grow, I think it's important for all of us to recognize the human that might be on the street, that is struggling, that needs just, hey, a conversation, a hello, how about a smile? Like, I mean, if they don't have your talents, even starting small, like to your point, those ripple effects, I think, can make a cascading effect, not only across London, but across the world. So talk to us, Joshua, about how this left your hometown of London and continued outside of that area, because I was looking on your website and this isn't just haircuts in London anymore. It has grown. So tell us about that.
Yeah, of course, of course. Actually, for the record, I do come from, there's a town, it's a town in the southwest called Exeter, but I lived in London for long enough that I've ended up becoming like a Londoner in the sense of how I feel about that place. But yes, it's been amazing, because what happened, Andy, was like from the first haircuts, for the first few months of doing this, I started to meet more and more people. And then with consent and people who wanted to tell a story, I'd never pry or like ask those kind of questions for any reason apart from a conversation. But a lot of the time I was hearing stories that I knew would like, they were so important for this issue, because they kind of dissolved all these stigmas surrounding it for me through every person that I met. And I knew that to tell these stories would be important. So I started doing that on Instagram and Facebook and different social media platforms. And yeah, people started to get involved in their own way. And that was first of all through like DMs asking me maybe what can I do. And I came up with this little thing of like, just sending people some copy of like, write down 3 things you really enjoy, like 3 things that, could be your hobbies, could be just things you're good at, like your passions, just things that you're interested in. And next to that, write down some areas that you see in your community that you'd like to change or you'd like to impact in some way. And it wasn't just homelessness necessarily. There was younger people like students who were going in to have lunch with like senior citizens who didn't have any family to come and see them, and just spending a bit of time with people in that way. One of the first people directly with their like skill set, a very tangible one, was this girl. But so she was working in a practice in North London, and a lot of people who are living on the street, especially in the UK, they have dogs like with them sometimes, because it's this amazing companionship. It's difficult for them maybe to know exactly where to get services, and Jade would go out together sometimes, and she'd like do basically everything she possibly could in a mobile way to like look after this dog, give it a health check, do everything. And it was like so nice to see the bond that she created then with the owner. And it's just this ripple that from working as a vet in a practice and how she was like years ago, now she's created this organization called Street Vet UK. She's inspired thousands of people, thousands of vets, not just in the UK, but it's branching out to other places too. And like, it's really beautiful to just see how when people get up, they sort of find for her, it's like her destiny now. Like she's now like, this is what she does. And she's going to be doing this for a long time to come. But yeah, there was yoga teachers going into drug rehabilitation centers and offering their time. And I think, yeah, just all kinds of nice things. Cause I feel that, I'm not saying I'm not an activist per se, but I think that I don't think that's what this is about for me. I think this is not, I'm not doing the work I'm doing because I'm pointing fingers at someone saying that something's wrong. I know there's a lot of shit wrong in the world, and like the little things, and remembering the importance of like living by like the actions, the way you step out into the world. Like you can shout about all these different issues on social media, and don't get me wrong, I am politically engaged in my own way, but I don't really like to put that out there. I'm more like kind of, if you feel shit about the world, like try and get moving in the right direction in a way that like you want to live, like rather than shouting about it and telling other people what they think or what they should think. Like just start living what it is that you feel, like start living that life. It's going to take work, it's going to take time, but I'm not into this to like to shout at people or point fingers and say you should feel guilty. I'm into this to go like, look, this thing works. Like we're all humans. Like we all, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, like we all feel the same things.
That's great. Yeah, we take care of each other, but we instead of, I mean, yes, words are important; they're a piece of the puzzle, but action can be even better. Talk to me about where you hope this movement goes over the next whatever 3 to 5 years. What looks like, wow, this is made some progress for me.
The education piece for me, Andy, is really important. Like I speak in schools in the UK and in the US sometimes as well, and I think that like not that I think like anyone over a certain age is like done and like I can't but it's just that you get people who are right in the middle of like where their career is going and they're busy. You get people in their 30s who are building a family and maybe hopefully if they can like putting their life together in like kind of like a way that maybe means children and maybe means a bit more security in their life. But like younger people, I just feel that when I go into schools I feel just so connected to talking about this stuff, so connected to trying to offer like whatever success looks like for you and not trying to change that, but backed up with like this thing that's often not spoke about, which is through visual imagery, through like people and anecdotes and stories. You can see the difference in someone when someone's bothered saying hello to them, like you said earlier, saying how are you, spending some time with somebody, just in this what can feel like very these places we live where sometimes you don't know the name of your neighbors. You don't go for dinner anymore. You are all driving around in your cars until you come back to your own little pod, and that's how we're living. It's like trying to just bring people closer, man. Trying to see beyond the superficial, as I meant earlier. But for me, the way to get there for me is it's more going into education with what I do, and that can look like many different things. But yeah, so I mean, in the past, like I've documented this through art exhibitions and working with local artists. I wrote a book last year, which was published, and it's a series of stories of people I've met from different cities and different places in the world. And yeah, for the next 5 years, I think, I've already got my kind of I'm feeling re-energized again to start writing. But the biggest thing is like I love going in to talk to younger people about this and workshop it, and it gives me so much energy. So yeah, more of that.
I love that. Yeah, and I think people are really impacted by stories. You share your story, you share Jade's story. That really gets to the heart of things and really motivates people. Tell people where they can get this book, and then tell people where they can go to learn more about Do Something for Nothing.
Thank you. Yeah, so DoSomethingForNothing.org is the website where you can dig in and have a bit more of a read about this and other people who are getting involved in their own way. And then the book is available, like if you search online in your local area, it will either be at local bookstores or major retailers. Yeah, you can check that out online. It's just called, the title is Do Something for Nothing. So yeah, you'll find it. But I honestly think that is such a great way to spread this message, because I mean, for the record as well, it's a not-for-profit book. Like I mean, and the proceeds go to the right place. It's like it's a way of giving someone. If you've ever had a conversation with someone about, say, homelessness and some people, and someone has a certain viewpoint, you can get into the debate, or you can say, hey, maybe I can buy this book, because I know that I've heard some really great, as far as like who you meet within those pages, I think there's someone that all of us relate to in our own way through different stories. And it's I try my best to pay homage to the people within those pages. I'm happy the way it turned out.
Well, Joshua, thank you so much for your time today. You've moved me, and I'm going to be taking some action right after this call and buying that book, because I want to have those ripple effects and make this world a better place.
Honestly,
so thank you so much for your time today.
Mate, thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out. It was great to speak to you.